Welcome. Thank you for joining us today to read Grandma's Special Recipe. Does your grandparent have a special recipe that you love? Do you like it when your grandparents come to visit you, or maybe when you get to go visit them? I used to love visiting my grandparents. We're going to read the story today, and I think you will enjoy it. Grandma's Special Recipe by Pamela Graham. Hooray! Grandma is coming to visit. Maddie cheered and clapped her hands. You haven't seen your grandma since you were a baby, said Maddie's mother. Not since we moved here. Jake's Nan drives a red sports car, said Maddie. She's really cool. I can't wait to tell Jake my grandma is coming. Maddie ran to the garage and hopped on her bike. Her mother hurried after her, waving her hand and calling, Maddie, Grandma isn't like Jake's Nan. But Maddie didn't hear her. She was already halfway to Jake's place. Jake and his dad lived in a big apartment with his dad's mother. Maddie pressed a buzzer at the security gate and Jake let her in. He waved a new tennis racket at Maddie. Do you like my new racket? He asked. Nan and I have just been to the tennis courts. She was playing in a tournament. Maddie admired the racket. My grandma's coming to stay, she said. Maybe she'll buy me a racket like that. Jake and Maddie were both taking lessons at the tennis club. The club had lots of players, and Jake's Nan was captain of a ladies team. Jake's Nan was talking on the telephone. She waved hello to Maddie from a red velvet chair. Big rings sparkled on the fingers of both her hands. Her hair was very blonde and shiny, and it looked as if she had just been to the hairdresser's. She always looked like that. Today, a fashionable green clip nestled in her hair. I can't stay, said Maddie. I just came to tell you the news. Won't it be fun? We'll all be able to go to tennis together. When Maddie returned home, she went straight to her bedroom. What she saw was quite a surprise. What are you doing? She asked her mother. Why are you moving my things? Her mother smiled at her. Sorry, Maddie. Do you mind sharing Claire's room? She asked. Grandma can't walk very well, and she'll need the extra space. Oh, said Maddie. I didn't know that. All right, Grandma can have my room. She picked up her school bag and a few other things and carried them into Claire's room. Claire was still a baby and slept in a cot. There'd be plenty of room for both of them. Grandma arrived in a taxi. Where's your car? Maddie asked her. She was hoping Grandma would drive a red sports car like Jake's Nan did. Grandma gave Maddie a one-armed hug because her other hand was leaning on a walking stick. It was a nice, warm hug. Grandma chuckled. Maddie, I haven't driven a car for years, not since I broke this silly hip of mine, Grandma said as she patted her side. Maddie frowned as she looked at Grandma. Grandma's hair was curled in a frizzy perm. Grandma was old and wrinkly. Jake took his new tennis racket to school the next day. How's your grandma? He asked Maddie. Maddie's shoulders drooped and she groaned. She has frizzy hair and she limps. She sat in my chair in front of the TV and she's taken over my bedroom. Is she coming to tennis with you this afternoon? Jake asked. Never, Maddie almost snapped. I'm not going out in public with someone as old as she is. She coughs all the time. When she arrived home from school, Maddie stopped at the front door. She sniffed the air. What was that smell? She followed her nose into the kitchen. Grandma was taking some cupcakes out of the oven, and on the counter was a big plate of freshly baked cookies. I didn't know which you liked better, cupcakes or cookies, said Grandma. So I baked some of each. She smiled and added, Why don't you try one of my special cookies? They should be cool enough to eat. Maddie took one of the cookies and tasted it. It was the best cookie she had ever had. Grandma smiled again and said, "You act as though you've never had a homemade cookie before." "We are always too busy to bake. We buy most things from the supermarket," Maddie replied. Even though the cookies were delicious, Maddie only ate two. She didn't want Grandma to think she liked them too much. Maddie went to Claire's room and threw her school bag on the floor. She hadn't noticed that Claire was asleep, but not for long. The noise made her cry. Their mother rushed in. "Maddie, look what you've done. She's only just gone to sleep." "It's not my fault," cried Maddie. "If I had my own room, she wouldn't be awake now." Jake took the newspaper to school the next day. "Look at my Nan's photo," he said. "She went to a charity ball with a lot of important people." Maddie wished her grandma was more like Jake's Nan. After dinner that night, Grandma pulled out her knitting bag. She was making a little blanket for Claire's cot. Maddie watched TV, but she kept glancing at Grandma out of the corner of her eye. Jake's Nan was probably at an important meeting or something. She wouldn't be at home knitting, that's for sure. "Would you like me to show you how to knit?" asked Grandma. She put down her knitting and picked out a couple of spare knitting needles and some wool for Maddie. They sat together and Grandma held her knobby hands over Maddie's as they started knitting. Grandma didn't mind how many mistakes Maddie made. In a soft voice, she told her where to put the needle and how to wrap the wool around. "I'm knitting a scarf," Maddie told Jake the next day. Maddie hurried home from school so that Grandma could help her with her knitting. As they sat together, Grandma told Maddie stories about her childhood. There were funny stories and some that were a bit sad, but Maddie loved them all. She even found that Grandma had been a champion horse rider. She no longer noticed when Grandma coughed now and then. She also didn't mind that Grandma slept in her bedroom. In fact, the more she got to know Grandma, the more she liked her. She didn't notice the frizzy hair anymore, and the limp was just part of how Grandma was. Grandma and Maddie didn't go to the tennis courts, but they did lots of other things together. One day, when Maddie came home from school, she saw an ambulance leaving her house. She raced inside, her heart thumping in her chest. "What's happened? What's happened?" she called. Her mother was packing a few things in a small case. "Your grandma will be in the hospital for a few days. I'm taking some of her things to her," she said quietly. Maddie didn't know what to say. She wanted Grandma back home. "Can I come to the hospital to see her?" she asked. "Of course you can. She'd like that." Maddie's mother smiled. When Maddie told Jake that Grandma was in hospital, he said, "Now you'll have your bedroom back." Maddie frowned. She had forgotten about her bedroom. Jake kept talking. "Nan's taking me to the sports awards party tomorrow. Do you want to come? We can pick you up in Nan's sports car." Maddie had always wanted to go to the awards night. It was the biggest event of the year. She hesitated for just a second. "Only if I'm back from the hospital in time," she said. "I'm going to bake some cookies and take them to Grandma." "Are they hard to make?" asked Jake. "Not if I follow Grandma's special recipe," said Maddie. "Do you want to help me? Then you can come with us to visit her. She'd like that." All right, well, the end. So at first, she wasn't quite sure about her grandma. She hadn't seen her in a long time. But then she found out her grandma is not like Nan, Jake's Nan. And that's okay. Everybody's different. Everybody's special in their own way. And that's a good thing. Because how boring would the world be if we were all the same? Huh? I hope you liked that story. I did. And I hope you'll join us for another story very soon. If you liked that story and you'd like to see more, go ahead and like our page and subscribe so that the YouTube will let you know when we have a new video out. Take care.